What is going on, CaneSport? Izubee Charles here for another installment of Inside the Lines. Today, I'm joined by 2025 Miami commit Luke Nickel and his offensive coordinator at Milton High School, Coach Jackson. Thank you guys for joining me. I know you guys are in the midst of trying to win a second straight state championship, so thank you for taking the time out your busy schedules for this.
I
No doubt.
appreciate it. Glad to be on here.
So for sure. So with you guys, I want to take it back to Luke's sophomore year when Coach Jackson started coaching you. Just Luke, what were your first impressions of Coach Jackson and all that good stuff?
Yeah, he came in right before spring ball, going into my sophomore year. So, really starting to start my high school career of football, and then just when I first met him, I really liked his personality. Just knew he was a really chill guy and just someone that I can trust and someone that I can lean on, and yeah, just someone that's going to be there for me. And then someone that's going to push you to be the best, and yeah, just go out there and do your thing every Friday, and then every practice, just go out there and have fun.
Coach Jackson, for you getting to Milton, you see this young quarterback that's going to lead your offense. What were your impressions of Luke?
Well, one of the things that Luke doesn't know that I never told him was that I knew who he was before I got there. It's not the reason I got there, but it's one of them. But I think what gets lost in the discussion about how good Luke is that at that point he was a freshman and he had to do a quarterback competition. I mean, it was a real true battle. I made it as fair as possible, and he had to earn that thing. I mean, there was a point where I kind of knew that it was going to end up with him before maybe he did, but we pushed it all the way into fall camp, and it just showed to, I think, himself how the competitor inside of him was what he had to lean on in order to get to where he is now and where he's going to go in the future. And so, Coach Reeves and I had kind of planned that on purpose for him, and hoping that, whomever, we were going to be happy with whomever got the job because it was honest and true. But knowing that whichever one of those players earned the job, that it was going to be better for them in the long run. And it just so happened that, Luke was 15 at that point and didn't know any better. And all he did was just continue to fight every single day. Getting to know him over the next 3 years, it's not a surprise. If you ever talk to his dad or you ever talk to his brother, this is something he's had in him since he was a very small little kid. So the competitor in that was the first thing I noticed, and I can always work with that.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then last year, during your second years together, you guys won a state championship at Georgia in the hardest, division up there. 10 straight wins to end off the year. Luke, you put up video game numbers. I remember when I first saw these numbers, 3,900 yards, 39 touchdowns, so only 5 interceptions. But the season didn't start off, with sunshine and rainbows. Actually, a rainy day in South Florida. For you, Luke, what do you think really clicked last year for you guys and the whole program to really turn it up to win that state title?
Yeah, I think, early in the year, we had some struggles, but it was a matter of time for us to figure it all out, because we knew we had one of the most talented teams in the state. We had a bunch of new guys, and it was really just about executing and clicking on all cylinders. So once we did that, we were able to just all form and execute as a team, and that showed later in the year. Just going out there and playing for each other, trusting in one another on each side of the ball, and then just going out there and having fun on every Friday night, and that's what we did.
Winning that state title in the Georgia Dome, seeing that confetti fall down, just how was that experience for both of you guys?
It was so cool because, he's won a state championship before, but that was the first one for me, and it's just something that I've dreamed about since a little kid. And then seeing my brother win one his freshman year, it's just something that I've always wanted to do, especially at Milton, where I grew up my whole life. And just, looking forward to try to do something that Milton's never done before and go back to back.
Coach Jackson, what was that moment kind of like for you, sharing, that moment with Luke, with all the things you guys went through that season?
So he had mentioned that, I had the experience of one earlier, and we got to play that game out on our home field because of some snow that kept us out of the bins. So I've actually played in the bins or coached in the bins several times, but never won a championship there. So that piece was special. But also, we were underdogs, and we weren't in the other game that I won. We were underdogs in this one, and I just know that none of the rest of us felt that way. You know, us in the staff room, I mean, we got an amazing staff. And I mean, I think it's 90% of them have won a championship even before last year. So we were sitting there saying, like, we've done this. We've been here. I've called this game. You've called this game. Only thing that's different is where it is, and our players haven't played it. But, you know, you mentioned that we had kind of some stumbles in the beginning of the year. And I tell people this all the time is, you know, yeah, this 24 season, we've got 19 players back from that group. But last year, we didn't. And we were so young, even though we were juniors. You're not a junior until you play your junior season. You don't have that experience. So when you started to see us escalate last year is because we became junior players. We weren't sophomores anymore. We weren't new to each other. We weren't new in experience. I mean, by the time we played in that state championship game, Luke had played in, 29 out of 30 possible games from sophomore to junior year. And so there was nothing that I thought that anybody could do to stop us from winning that game because he was playing. And, it wasn't just that. I mean, that's the thing I can control. We played great defense that day. We ran the ball well, everything else. But as far as we're here for Luke, right? So, like, he was there and he's going to be there this year. There's nothing there because, that was the best part for me. In 17, we did it with my backup QB. Luke's not my backup QB. Like, this whole thing is tailored around him. And that's going to be what continues to push us forward. So it'll be great. We're going to do it again as long as he's around.
And then this year you guys come back to South Florida, kind of get that get-back victory versus American Heritage. I know it's not the team you guys played, but just coming back down here, Coach Jackson, seeing, Luke get that win. I know some, things happen at halftime, things like that. Just, he has a game-winning drive, throws over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just talk about what stood out to you the most in that performance, against a very, very good American Heritage team down here.
You asking me that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I saw you after the game there, and I was pretty fired up, mostly for him because what I mentioned earlier, that his competitiveness is just top-notch. Okay, so we're in a tight game with a really good team. And we've got a lot of good players that play their best games in big moments. And so, we were feeling pretty good about it, but it was tight because they're good. And we get into halftime, and I'm just thinking on the way walking down there to the locker room, what do I got to do? What do I got to call? I think we got the ball out of halftime, so I'm trying to get my drive going. As soon as I walk in, I get told that Luke broke his thumb. All right, and so my first reaction was, well, I don't really care because the only thing I care about is what Luke says. So I don't know if you remember this, Luke, but I went straight to you and I just said, well, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you said?
I remember exactly what I said.
Well, what did you say?
I was just like, I'm good. I'm ready to finish the game. Yeah,
he said, I'm going to finish the game. And so I didn't give a, about what anybody else told me. I just knew that if this player wants to finish, he's earned that. And I trust his toughness. It turns out that he didn't break his thumb. And, it's been a thing we've had to manage. But he's also thrown for, he's on pace to beat his record from last year. So hasn't had any strides backwards. Point is, in a game of that magnitude on ESPN, when everybody's telling you that something's not right, he says, I don't care. Give me the ball. And we went out there, and when I knew it was okay, it was a first third down out of the drive, out of the half. We were on the right hash. I called a play that was supposed to go to the slot. They guarded that, and so he had to throw it all the way to the other numbers. In high school, the hashes are way too wide. So if you can throw it from the hash in high school to the other numbers, you got plenty of arm. And he threw it to the other numbers at a 5-yard hitch, and we completed it for a first down. And I was like, well, we're just going to win the game now because nothing's wrong with him. Good news is we were able to run the ball well, and I tried to manage it. But I just knew that the toughness of that player, Luke right there, is something that we can always count on. And at the end of the day, I mean, we had practiced that play that morning that Ethan scored on. We went over it and walked through, kind of fixed a little bit of Ethan's route. And I just said, if we call this, man, I promise you he'll score. And we executed perfectly. And, Luke dipped his shoulder and threw it underneath. And great player scored the ball, But that's the toughness, is that everybody on the team just believed that we were supposed to win and didn't care about what any diagnosis of health or none of that. It was just snapping the ball and let's see where it happens. So that was my first reaction to that, but I was really proud of it at the end of it.
Luke, during that game, I know you showed off your mobility as well a little bit, running some guys over, running out of the pocket, scrambling. Like Coach Jackson said, you threw that game-winning touchdown. Just that whole entire game, kind of from your perspective, why was it so important for you to get that win on national television in South Florida where you'd be playing your college ball? Just, what was going through your mind, after that game was all over?
I just felt like last year when we came down to Florida, we didn't really put our best product out there. And, it wasn't much about how we lost and all that. It was really just we didn't, prove ourselves right. We really didn't go out there and just give it our all. So we wanted to go do that this year. And, during the game, just going through each and every play, looking at my guys, trusting in them. That's really what got us through there. There was no point in the game where I was worried at all. No one else was worried because they were looking to our left and right and just knowing that we have each other. And then just that confidence that we have in our team is just incredible. And I think that's what, got us that win.
And then since then, you guys have continued to roll 8-0 right now. Huge win over Gainesville. Just, Luke, where do you think your game has kind of grown the most during your senior year?
I think just, getting it to my playmakers, knowing where to go with the ball. That's really been a big thing for me. And I got to give a lot of props to Coach Jackson. I mean, the progress that I've made these past few years has been, a huge credit to him. I've been able to learn so much in the film room and just, going out there and showing, my capabilities out there on the field, just feeling really comfortable out there.
Coach Jackson, from your perspective, you watch him, day in and day out. Where do you think his game is kind of taking the biggest leaps, during his final year of high school ball?
Yeah, I mean, I told you down in Miami or wherever we were when we talked that I thought his biggest step has been his influence. Leadership is influence, and he's always been a great leader by the way that he played and took about business, right? But now there's this influence piece that I feel like Luke has stepped into that all great quarterbacks have, where coach can say, hey, you should have done this way. But Luke is now taking that ownership of, hey, I need that route to be 5 yards deeper, or, you came off like a little slow. Why don't you take an inside release, or, being in charge of his protections and being completely in charge of them and not relying on, me helping him with that very much. And all of those are just students of the game pieces, but also great players not all great players have that. You can play, but also you can operate and play. And the operation piece has been an improvement. I think he's taken ownership of that, just from how I stand, how my voice carries, things like that. I think that's been the biggest and only real piece that he had to improve. I mean, all of the other intangibles were already there.
And then Luke, obviously, you've been committed to Miami for, I feel like, what's been forever now, almost 2 years. Just talk about, that offense. Obviously, this year they're off to a 7-0 start. One of the best offenses in the country, averaging over 500 yards, almost 50 points per game. Just what have you seen from that offense that's making you, kind of happy that you're going to be playing in that type of system, shortly?
Yeah, I just see, the ability to get the ball out in space to the playmakers. I remember going through my recruitment and I was talking to Coach Dawson, and then him just talking about his philosophy and how his game and how he calls his plays. And, I started thinking about it. It's really similar to what I do. I think what I do fits his play style. And, I feel like him and Coach Jackson are I can relate them in a way. I think, the way they coach me is very similar. I can just tell that they have the same demeanor. And, I remember talking to Coach Jackson and before I committed, and I remember just like I said earlier, like how I can always lean on him and trust him. And I remember we were talking about just how Miami fit me, and he always knew that this was a good spot for me. So, and I trusted him in that. and I ended up making the decision, but also just trusting in my parents and myself, knowing where I feel comfortable at.
A lot of crazy moments for Miami this year. You have the comeback at Cal, the Virginia Tech game. Last week against Louisville. Just what's been your favorite kind of memory or game that they've played this year so far, Luke?
Yeah, I think it was really the Cal game. Just seeing them keep bouncing back when their backs were against the wall, they were down by whatever, how many points. You just saw them kept fighting. That's really what I like to see, because that's really how I model my game. Is I really just whatever's the situation is, just go out there and go do your thing. Fight each and every play to the end, and that's what they did against Cal. And that's really what I like seeing. Was just the offense maybe struggled a little bit early, but they were able to bounce back in the end.
And then Coach Jackson, Luke kind of alluded to it when he talked a little bit earlier. He said that that fit in Miami is something that he sees, is something that you guys spoke about. You've been down there, a handful of times. Or this past spring, just we talked about this, off camera. But what about that fit to you makes you comfortable, sending Luke down there to Miami with guys like Coach Shannon Dawson and Coach Cristobal?
Yeah, certainly. So in Luke's spring of the 23 season, so leading into his junior year, he had a lot of traffic coming through the school, a lot of traffic looking at him. The recruitment was picking up, and I can't count how many guys we threw for, things like this. All right, and so inside of that, I'm talking to all those guys, and so is his dad, and so is Luke, and all this. But I see it from a coach perspective. I see it from how I coach Luke. And after Coach Dawson came and saw him and talked to him, I remember Coach Dawson went back home, and I know exactly where I was. I was on my back porch. I called Coach Dawson. And I said, "Look, here are the things about Luke Nickel." Boom, boom, boom. And Coach Dawson said, "Well, these are the things that I want in a quarterback." Boom, boom, boom. And I just said, "Well, I mean, that's the guy." And so after a few more conversations with him, I just knew, and it's not my job to push a player to a certain spot. But when a player says, "I think this about a spot," I'm allowed, as his coach and mentor, to be like, "I also think that about that spot." So if you feel good about that, then you should trust yourself. So the way that, getting to know Coach Shannon Dawson, after I've been down there this past spring practice, being in a meeting room with him, watching him coach Cam and all the rest of those guys, and to be honest with you, coaching them all individually. The way he coached Cam's not the same way he coached their other guys, and vice versa, because everybody's different. And I really have a lot of appreciation for Coach Dawson, because I think that that's the way you have to coach in high school, because I don't get to choose who I got, really. Okay, so I have to adapt to who the player is. And, if I get to be in his shoes and choose who my player is, well, then I would choose a player like Luke. And so, we kind of see eye to eye. But also, in the way that he develops his scheme and the way that he calls it and the way that he puts pressure on the quarterback to run it, Luke's already doing all that. It's very similar to what we're doing. So I just know that he's going to be successful there in whatever time frame, whether that's sooner than later, doesn't matter. At some point, that relationship is going to work well. And, what I told you off camera down there when I was there, I said, "Dude, I get it. I had no idea the campus, some of the facility, the vibe in the locker room. I had no idea that was what it was." And I'm rooting for him. I mean, I think that not just because Luke's going, but because, football's better when the U's good. And, it's fun to have him good right now. And I want to see him play down there. So I get it. And I'm happy for him.
Luke, I know you've been, you're the first guy in that 2025 class in Miami. Continue to add guys. Recently, big time wide receiver Joshua Moore. I saw when he committed, you posted that picture of you, Joshua Moore, Dalen Upshaw. Just talk about, the excitement of playing with those guys. And we can't leave out the tight ends, Brock Schott, Luca Gilbert, Gerard Pringle, running back as well. Just talk about the offensive weapons that, are joining you in that 2025 class.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are elite. I had Joshua Moore and Dalen Upshaw on my official, and I remember talking to the coaches and then also just talking to them. I was like, I'm not leaving here without you two, like, committing with me. You guys I need you guys here with me. So just talking to them, and then just going through the process, I knew that those guys were going to be in the boat soon. But we have a lot of playmakers that we have on the that are committed right now. I mean, me and Brock, I think, are going to be rooming together. So just great relationships that I've built so far, and I just can't wait to keep connecting with them. And once we get there in January, I know we're going to get to work, and it's going to be a special offense with us in there.
Coach Jackson, I want to ask you too. Kind of want to take things back a little bit. When Luke first committed to Miami, some people really didn't know who he was. He's kind of a a 3-star guy, and people were kind of letting that ranking or whatever kind of get to their head. Since then, Luke's climbed. I think he's a top 200 prospect now. But you've always been a firm believer in his ability and where he stands among the other quarterbacks in the country. But as his offensive coordinator, mentor, guy that's been around him for so long, just what do you think separates Luke Nickel from any quarterback in the rest of the country?
No doubt. I am biased. I have to admit. I mean, he's our quarterback. So I put him up against anyone because of that. But I got the privilege to travel to Los Angeles to the Elite 11. And, rankings be whatever they are. At some point, everybody kind of agrees that at least if you got there, you're in the top something, right? And when he was there, he performed as good as anybody there. A couple guys were taller, bigger. Some of the guys maybe looked a little more electrically athletic. It doesn't matter to me. None of that was actually what you evaluate to win a game. All of that was the tools you have to win a game. But there's the one tool that you asked me what separates him that you can't evaluate in that moment, which I think kept his ranking down for the longest time because he's not a camp kid. Didn't have to go out and do all these camps to get his name out there because he doesn't care about the name. He cares about winning. But two things can be true. He can care about his name and winning without doing all the camp stuff, but he got a chance to go do the Elite 11 and he performed well. Okay. But the one thing that it doesn't measure is his ability to win and propel his team to victory and show the leadership through toughness that you can't measure in shorts. You can't measure that in shorts. And if you ask any NFL GM or college, high school, anybody that knows what they're talking about, that knows how to win games and has seen it, it's that you can't describe, but I'm trying to describe. But you definitely can't find it in a camp setting so you can write a story about it because it doesn't show up. But as long as he keeps winning and what we do this year, if we do what we're supposed to do this year, people are recognizing it now. And you know what, though, is the best part about it is Luke's never cared about that. Luke thrives on proving people that, whatever they think is wrong, unless it's what he thinks, and then he's going to prove them right. So I'm just happy that he's getting his respect that he deserves at this point. But I think that's the biggest side of why the rankings, I've tried to always remind him that none of that really matters. Because if you can go out and perform at a camp circuit a bunch of times, well, then you're in the media a lot and your name is out there, but it doesn't necessarily make you a better fit for the offense you're in or the team you're playing for or where you're going to go in the future. So just keep playing. And the best part about him is he just, okay, let me play the next game and not worry about it. And then if there's something that he didn't like about what happened in the last game, he's very dedicated to prove it the next game. So that's what I think.
And then, to wrap it up, Luke, I want to, end it off with you. You mentioned you're going to be an early enrollee at the University of Miami, great high school career and all that good stuff. But just, as you get closer and closer to, get to that collegiate level, probably something that you dreamed of your entire life. Just, what are you looking forward to the most when you get down, on campus at the University of Miami? Kind of what type of legacy do you want to leave at Milton before it's all said and done?
Yeah, I've said it multiple times, just to my teammates and everything like that. But I want to go out and just, enjoy these last couple months. These are the guys that I've grown up with my whole life. So being able to spend these last couple months with them, doing the sport, playing the sport that we love and we have fun doing, that's just a special moment for us. And just also doing something that Milton's never done before. We want to create a legacy and, just do something that would be very memorable because, that's really what it's all about. Just going out there and having fun with my guys that I've been, around my whole life. But yeah, I mean, and then once I get to Miami, just get down and work, connect with the guys, and just be there for them. And then just it's gonna be an exciting last few months, just going out there and competing on Friday nights.
And then before we wrap it up, Coach Jackson, any parting words, anything you want to say before we end it?
Oh man, this player's listening to the narratives. We keep talking about why you play, what you want to be remembered, what you want to accomplish, and who you want to be remembered by or as. And so he just answered all of those. And if we can focus on playing the game because you love it, playing the game with your friends and making memories that you won't ever get back, you won't ever forget, and then being different, being legendary, and being the guy that we will talk about until somebody comes along and replaces you. And I don't know who that'll be or when it'll be, but if you can put yourself at the top of that list, then all the rest of it will take care of itself. And I'm trying to soak it in. I talk to the quarterback group every day after practice, and it seems like lately most of the conversation has been about, hey, did you ever think you were going to get to this point where you only have this much time left? Because I took it for granted, and I didn't think that we'd ever be here where I've only got, so many more games, 2 guaranteed, hopefully 7 with Luke. And we're just trying to milk it out, and enjoy it. And that's what I think about what we're supposed to do for the next few months before he goes down there, and then transition from what it takes to be a college player. It'll take a minute, but he'll learn it, and he'll be there quick.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, I appreciate you guys, joining me. Hopefully, in 7 or 8 weeks or however long, you guys are back in the Benz lifting another state title. But like I said, thank you guys for joining me tonight. For Coach Jackson, Luke Nickel, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching.